Welcome to the Decoding the Unknown channel. Today we delve into a new cosmic mystery that is troubling the scientific community. 3I Atlas, an interstellar comet that raises troubling questions. Is it just a simple space rock? Or a message from another corner of the universe? Stay with us until the end. What you learn may completely change your perspective. Is a hostile alien ship approaching Earth? A mysterious object from outside our solar system is speeding toward Earth. Discovered on July 1, 2025, it was dubbed 3I Atlas and immediately piqued the interest of the scientific community. It is traveling at over 209,000 miles per hour and appears to be a giant comet, larger than Manhattan Island. But some researchers propose a much more provocative hypothesis. What if it wasn't just a comet? What if, in reality, it was alien technology in disguise? Among those who support this idea is Harvard professor Avi Loeb, known for his bold theories about extraterrestrial life. Along with two colleagues from the Initiative for Interstellar Studies, Loeb published a study suggesting that 3I Atlas's unusual trajectory and speed could indicate an artificial origin. What is particularly striking is the fact that this object follows a route that brings it closer to the planets Jupiter, Mars, and Venus, a route that, theoretically, would allow for the placement of observation or espionage devices. Moreover, in November, when 3I Atlas reaches its closest point to the Sun, it will become invisible from Earth. Coincidence or strategy? Loeb suggests that this may be intentional, to avoid monitoring with ground-based telescopes at exactly the most important moment. The dark forest hypothesis, according to which alien civilizations hide to avoid detection by potential cosmic predators, seems to gain weight in this context. And if 3I Atlas is indeed a technological artifact, humanity may need to consider defensive measures, even if this possibility remains for now only theoretical. The problem is that no ground-based missile can get close enough to this object to analyze it directly. Its speed far exceeds humanity's current technological capabilities. Of course, not all scientists agree with this view. Some clearly say that we are dealing with an ordinary comet expelled from another solar system. They consider the extraterrestrial hypothesis to be exaggerated, even dangerous, as it can affect the credibility of scientific research. Even Loeb admits that the chances of 3I Atlas being an artificial probe are slim. But, he says, the idea is worth investigating, not because it's a certainty, but because it opens up a fascinating intellectual challenge. So, is 3I Atlas a mere cosmic visitor, or a messenger from the depths of the universe? It remains to be seen. Welcoming a new interstellar object, 3I Atlas. On July 1, 2025, astronomers were surprised by the appearance of a new cosmic visitor, a mysterious object called A11PL3Z, later renamed 3I Atlas. It was identified as coming from outside our solar system, a rare and extremely important discovery. Interstellar objects are distinguished by their unusually high speeds. 3I Atlas is moving at about 66 kilometers per second, a huge value, far exceeding the speed needed to escape the Sun's gravitational field. The similarities and differences with previously discovered interstellar objects, such as Oumuamua and Borisov, have sparked intense debate. Oumuamua, discovered in 2017, had an elongated shape and inexplicable motion, while Borisov, discovered in 2019, behaved like a regular comet. In the case of 3I Atlas, things seem even more complex. Early observations suggest it could be about 20 kilometers across, a huge size, even larger than the famous asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. This size raises many questions. Why has such a large object only been discovered now? And why haven't we seen millions of smaller ones as we would have expected? Some researchers believe the observed glow comes from sunlight reflecting off the gas and dust particles around it, which would make it most likely a comet. Others believe it could have an unusually reflective surface, or even emit its own light, less likely but not impossible hypotheses. On October 27, 2025, 3I Atlas will reach its closest point to the Sun, and on December 17th, it will be closest to Earth, at a distance of about 2.4 astronomical units, 2.5 times farther than the Sun is from us. What's even more fascinating is that this object's orbit is retrograde, with an inclination almost completely opposite to the plane in which the planets in our solar system rotate. This unequivocally indicates an interstellar origin. The James Webb Space Telescope and the new Rubin Observatory in Chile will play a key role in the coming months, helping researchers learn more about this unusual object. From its temperature and surface area to its 3D shape and subtle movements that could suggest unexplained acceleration. For now, though, 3I Atlas remains a colossal mystery, traversing space with quiet grace and the promise of revelation. And us? All we can do is wait and watch. Interstellar object 3I Atlas, smaller or rarer than thought. When 3I Atlas was discovered on July 1, 2025, initial data indicated an unusual trajectory and astonishing speed, all clear signs of an interstellar object. Initial estimates suggested a solid core with a radius of about 10 kilometers and a glow that suggested faint but visible comet-like activity. However, these assumptions were quickly questioned. Professor Avi Loeb, who was vacationing in Aruba at the time, analyzed the numbers and raised a fundamental question. Can these data be correct, given the estimated total mass of objects traveling through the galaxy? His conclusion was simple but surprising. Something doesn't add up. If 3I Atlas were really that big, and if there were many other similar objects, then the entire galaxy would be much more densely populated with interstellar rocks than current observations show. In other words, we have two possibilities. 1. Either 3I Atlas is not as big as it seems, and the light we see comes only from the dust and gas around a much smaller core, perhaps only a few hundred meters across. 2. Either it is indeed a massive solid object, but very rare, one of an extremely small number of similar bodies. Both scenarios involve revising the original estimates. If it is an active comet, it will become brighter and brighter as it approaches the Sun and release more and more gaseous material. And if it is a massive solid object following an unusual trajectory, it means it came from a specific galactic region, not a random cloud of debris. The James Webb Space Telescope and the Rubin Observatory in Chile will play a crucial role in clarifying this dilemma. They will precisely measure the shape, brightness, and evolution of 3I Atlas and be able to answer the essential question, is this comet smaller than it seems, or is it a cosmic rarity? The answer could forever change the way we look at interstellar objects, and every day that passes brings us closer to finding the truth. 3I Atlas. The meeting with the unknown is approaching. The interstellar object 3I Atlas continues to capture the attention of researchers around the world. Discovered on July 1, 2025, it is crossing our solar system at an impressive speed, approximately 60 kilometers per second. On its way, 3I Atlas will approach Mars in October, reach its minimum distance from the Sun in late October, and reach its closest approach to Earth in December. Unfortunately, its closest approach to the Sun will not be visible from Earth because we will be on the opposite side of the star. The question that inevitably arises is, can we meet it, study it up close? Unfortunately, technological reality limits us. Its high speed and retrograde orbit make a classic interception impossible with current means. Even the fastest space probes cannot keep up with it. However, if we were to make a quick flyby, a probe could photograph the surface of this nearby object in spectacular detail, Such a mission would require a powerful camera capable of capturing sharp images in just a few minutes. Estimates suggest that if 3I Atlas has a typical albedo, it could measure up to 24 kilometers in diameter, comparable in size to the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. But there is another possibility. Its brightness comes from the gas and dust surrounding it, and the solid core is much smaller. Comparing spectra from the comet's tail with those from the surface could reveal clues about its composition, perhaps even the existence of elements essential for life. Interestingly, this scenario is reminiscent of Arthur C. Clarke's novel Encounter with Rama, where a giant alien ship enters our solar system. And in reality, 3I Atlas was included in the programs to monitor objects potentially dangerous to Earth. But here's a paradox. If 3I Atlas is really that big, then it should be extremely rare. In fact, such a discovery would be almost impossible. The only logical explanation would be that it directly targeted our inner solar system, an idea that's hard to explain through natural processes. The alternative? One as provocative as in Clarke's novel, a technological design. Of course, if it is confirmed to have a small core on the order of a kilometer or less, then everything returns to normal, a natural comet, expelled from another solar system. Until then, however, the mystery remains. And the coming months could bring us an answer that changes everything we know about the cosmos. Comet or something more, the enigma called 3I Atlas. Since its discovery, 3I Atlas has been the center of attention. It's traveling at a speed of 60 kilometers per second and appears to be heading straight for the inner solar system. But what exactly is this object? A comet, an asteroid, or something else entirely? The Minor Planet Center initially classified it as a comet, based on faint signs of activity around it, a kind of fuzz in the captured images. But this elongation could also be an optical effect caused by the object's rapid movement during the exposure. In addition, its brightness remained constant for several days, suggesting either that it is covered in dust or that it is nearly spherical and rotating rapidly. The first spectroscopic data, obtained with the Very Large Telescope, VLT in Chile, revealed a reddish coma that is more intense than that of ordinary comets. But no gases such as CN, cyanogen, carbon monoxide or dioxide, methane, ethane, or oxygen were detected, which is unusual. At this point, all we see around 3I Atlas appears to be just dust. This deep red color is reminiscent of Kuiper Belt objects, which have been bombarded by cosmic rays and ultraviolet radiation for billions of years. Under these conditions, complex organic compounds called tholins, dark reddish substances that form when materials like methane, water, or carbon dioxide are irradiated, form on their surfaces. But it's possible that 3I Atlas hides a solid core, with an invisible layer of gas between it and the dust layer. Perhaps only a small part of its surface is active, with the rest covered by an inert crust that insulates the interior. Assuming a typical albedo, a measure of reflectivity of 5%, the estimated size would be about 20 kilometers. But if the albedo is higher, then the object could be much smaller. A major question remains. Is 3I Atlas an active comet with a small nucleus, or a huge solid object that emits almost nothing? If the latter, then its existence becomes a mystery. An object this large should be extremely rare, far too rare to be found by chance. This means that there are two options. Either it's a regular comet with a small nucleus, or it's part of an unknown rare population with an orbit that brings it specifically toward our solar system, perhaps not by chance. In the coming months, data from the Webb or Hubble telescopes could provide clarification. And if 3I Atlas really does have a solid 20-kilometer core, its unusual trajectory could indicate a choice rather than a coincidence. As Forrest Gump said, science is like a box of candy. You never know what you're going to get out of it. What do the origin and age of the three interstellar objects tell us? In recent decades, humanity has witnessed an unprecedented phenomenon: the detection of three objects from outside our solar system. These are 1I Oumuamua, 2 Iberiso, and 3I Atlas. But where do these bodies come from? And how old are they? To answer these questions, astronomers analyze the trajectories of these objects, tracing them back in time through the gravitational field of the Milky Way galaxy. This process allowed them to estimate the place of origin and approximate age of each of them. The stars in our galaxy are distributed in two large disks: a thin one, where younger stars are born, and a thick one, populated by older stars, scattered by gravitational interactions over billions of years. 1I Oumuamua was notable for appearing nearly stationary relative to the general motion of galaxies before entering our solar system. Analysis shows that it originated in the thin galactic disk and is a cosmic baby, probably less than 2 billion years old. 2I Borisov has a similar trajectory to the Sun, so it is a galactic young adult, with an estimated age close to that of our solar system, which is about 4.6 billion years. But 3I Atlas appears to come from an older, more distant part of the galaxy. Its trajectory indicates that it is part of the population of old stars, meaning it is likely one of our oldest visitors. This conclusion is not just poetic, but also scientifically sound. Older objects tend to have a greater vertical motion relative to the central plane of the galaxy. The greater this vertical excursion, the older the object. Beyond the calculations, what is remarkable is that all three objects are getting closer to the center of the galaxy than the Sun is, a sign that they are in continuous migration. But Oumuamua remains a special case. Its extremely elongated shape, lack of any cometary activity, and non-gravitational acceleration are unusual features. In contrast, Borisov and Atlas behaved more normally, showing signs of cometary activity. Here a profound question arises. Are we sure we know what we are looking for? Modern astronomy operates in a framework in which everything is interpreted as having natural causes. Strange objects, such as Oumuamua, are viewed as puzzles, but never as evidence for alternative hypotheses, such as a possible artificial origin. Perhaps this limitation is part of the current scientific paradigm. But what if Oumuamua and others like it are messengers from another world? A world that is silently challenging us to expand our horizons. The next generation of telescopes, like the Rubin Observatory, will help us find answers, and perhaps start a new revolution in how we understand the universe. 3I Atlas, first anomalies observed. On July 1, 2025, astronomers observed a new interstellar object called 3I Atlas at a distance of about 4.5 times that between the Earth and the Sun. What immediately caught attention was its unusual brightness, which suggested a diameter of about 20 kilometers, far too large for an interstellar asteroid, according to known statistics. Just a day later, a published analysis highlighted a major incongruity. Over 1 million objects the size of Oumuamua would have to be detected before one as large as 3I Atlas was found. In reality, such objects are extremely rare and dangerous. An asteroid just 10 kilometers across was enough to cause the extinction of the dinosaurs. It was therefore much more likely that 3I Atlas was a comet, and that the brightness came from a cloud of gas and dust around a much smaller nucleus. However, a week after the discovery, 2 independent studies reported another anomaly. The object's spectrum showed no signatures of cometary gas. Instead, the reflected light showed a reddish tint typical of bodies covered in organic compounds modified by cosmic radiation, as is the case with Kuiper belt objects. If 3I Atlas does indeed have an active cometary tail and no trace of gas, and the light comes directly from its solid surface, It could mean that the object is truly massive, indeed around 20 kilometers in diameter. But this does not fit with what is known about the probability of such interstellar bodies appearing in our solar system. As 3I Atlas approaches the Sun, it will become brighter. If it is a solid object without dust and gas around it, the increase in brightness will be strictly a function of the distance from the Sun and Earth, without other spectacular phenomena. If, on the other hand, it is a classic comet, we expect to see the appearance of a tail. But what if it's neither? What if, as Arthur C. Clarke suggested in his novel Rendezvous with Rama, we are looking at an artificial object intentionally sent into the inner solar system? The coincidences are striking. 3I Atlas is moving in a retrograde orbit, just 5 degrees from the plane of Earth's orbit, a probability of just 0.2% for a random orientation. And the moment it will pass closest to the Sun, on October 29, 2025, coincides with a time when Earth will be on the opposite side, making observations extremely difficult. These details were ignored by Wikipedia and some scientific publications, citing the fact that the papers in question had not yet been officially published. This attitude perhaps reflects a deep reluctance to accept anomalies that contradict current scientific paradigms. But as the history of science has taught us, ignoring inconvenient facts does not lead to progress. It only delays the inevitable. Science needs curiosity, not censorship. Let us have the courage to observe, to question, and to question our own certainties. Only then will we be able to understand the true nature of 3I Atlas. 3I Atlas, extraterrestrial technology or simple cosmic coincidence? In a recently published paper with Adam Hibbard and Adam Crowell, researchers at the Interstellar Studies Initiative in London, Professor Avi Loeb raised a troubling question. Could 3I Atlas be an alien technological artifact? Drawing inspiration from the dark forest hypothesis, popularized by writer Cixin Liu, the authors suggest that intelligent civilizations may remain silent out of fear in a cosmos dominated by uncertainties and potential threats. In such a scenario, silence does not mean absence, but extreme caution. The paper examines several anomalies observed in the behavior of 3I Atlas. 1. Its retrograde orbit aligns almost perfectly with the ecliptic plane, a rare coincidence with a probability of only 0.2%. 2. The object appears to have a diameter of about 20 kilometers, which contradicts the statistics of interstellar objects so far. 3. Detailed spectroscopy did not detect traces of cometary gas, which raises questions about its true nature. 4. Its trajectory involves close and unlikely approaches to Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, with a cumulative probability of only 0.005%. 5. The point closest to the Sun, called perihelion, is hidden from observers on Earth, suggesting a possible strategy to avoid surveillance. 6. This positioning hypothetically allows for sophisticated maneuvers, such as a reverse Oberth braking, used to reduce speed and remain bound to the solar orbit. 7. The object came from a dense and bright area of the galaxy, previously difficult to observe, which could explain why it was only recently detected. 8. If 3I Atlas were to launch devices towards nearby planets, the speed required for these maneuvers would be below 5 kilometers per second, perfectly achievable even with our current technology. According to the authors, the near-perfect alignment of 3I Atlas's trajectory with the ecliptic plane could offer a number of advantages to an extraterrestrial intelligence. With such orbital precision and such a suggestive context, the technological hypothesis is remarkable and becomes plausible and testable. If it were to prove true, the consequences for humanity could be profound, either in a benign or a hostile sense. Avi Loeb explains this approach through Pascal's wager. It is more rational to consider the possibility of a major risk than to ignore a hypothesis that could cost us our existence. Even though 3I Atlas will most likely be confirmed as a natural body, perhaps a comet, the authors emphasize the scientific value of this exercise. It opens the door to future methods of identifying extraterrestrial technology in interstellar space. In conclusion, Loeb warns, ignoring technological choice is not a sign of intelligence. And in the face of a potentially disturbing cosmic reality, science must remain open, courageous, and ready to learn. 3I Atlas and its unusual shape, an image that raises questions. Recent images of the interstellar object 3I Atlas show a slightly elongated shape, as if it were stretching in the direction it is moving. But this shape does not mean that it has a comet tail, as one might think at first glance. This elongation is explained by the fact that the object is moving extremely fast, 60 kilometers per second, and the telescope captured the image for about 100 seconds. In that time, 3I Atlas traveled almost 6,000 kilometers, about the radius of the Earth. So its elongated shape is actually just an illusion created by its rapid movement during the photo. Its light spectrum shows no typical signs of a comet, no gas, no visible activity. Just a slight reddening of the reflected light, which can be explained by the presence of a compact dust cloud or a surface covered with organic materials. Interestingly, if this object were really 20 kilometers in diameter, as it seems, and if it were natural, it would have to be extremely rare. The Atlas telescope system should not have detected such an object in just 5 years of observation. Such a detection suggests either a huge coincidence or something else. Some researchers, including Avi Loeb, have proposed that it could be a dust cloud generated by a much smaller core, perhaps less than a kilometer in size. But if future data show that the object is solid and large, we need to keep an open mind and consider other hypotheses. Avi invites us to imagine a scenario. A spacecraft traveling 100 times faster than 3I Atlas. That's 6,000 kilometers per second. That's 2% of the speed of light. If we were to try to observe such an object, its image would be so stretched and faint that our telescope wouldn't even detect it. In other words, if there are advanced spacecraft flying through the solar system, we don't see them because our current technology isn't sensitive enough. And yet, we're not completely without methods. For example, LIGO, the Gravitational Wave Observatory, could sense the passage of such an object if it came close enough. But so far, no such signal has been detected. Maybe aliens are really here, but we don't have the right eyes to see them yet. 3I Atlas, how an interstellar comet went viral. How do you know when a scientific topic is going viral? Well, when the handyman who fixes something in your house or the mechanic who changes the filter in your car asks, with wide eyes, what else is being heard about 3I Atlas? Then you know for sure that the topic has gone beyond academic circles. In a world where science seems increasingly distant from the public, that's remarkable. Press conferences are usually formal, and funding decisions are made in a sort of closed room, far from the real curiosity of the people. But science is not a dogma. It is a learning process. An exercise in curiosity. With inevitable mistakes. And bold hypotheses. For decades, researchers have spent billions searching for theoretical dark matter particles, finding nothing. And when someone dares to propose a less conventional idea, that 3I Atlas might have an artificial origin, ridicule and rejection ensue. Astronomer Chris Lintott, for example, has called such a hypothesis nonsense on its own, and even demanded that any mention of the object's artificial nature be removed in order for a scientific paper to be published. But is it an insult to explore all possibilities? In reality, the hypothesis that 3I Atlas is an extraterrestrial artifact has led to the publication of a new paper which clearly emphasizes that this research is largely a pedagogical exercise, and most likely, 3I Atlas is a natural comet. But the point is not to prove it's artificial. The point is to gather data, to look for evidence, not to reflexively reject what we don't understand. After all, if the Vatican had agreed to look through Galileo's telescope sooner, it might not have taken them 4 centuries to admit that he was right. The real problem is fear. The fear of young researchers that thinking outside the box will jeopardize their careers. The fear of losing control. The fear of the unknown. But science should not be a cult. It should not reject questions just because they seem too bold. On the contrary, every hypothesis is worth analyzing, without ridicule, without censorship, without fear. Because after all, science begins with questions and seeks its answers in facts. Juno, the rejuvenated mission. Possible interception of 3I Atlas near Jupiter. This interstellar object, 3I Atlas, was discovered on July 1, 2025. Its trajectory will bring it within just 53.6 million kilometers of the planet Jupiter on March 16, 2026. This close approach offers a unique opportunity, its interception by the Juno spacecraft. Juno, launched in 2011 and in polar orbit around Jupiter since 2016, is equipped with extremely valuable scientific instruments. Originally scheduled to deorbit in the gas giant's atmosphere, Juno could be given a new mission, a close flyby of 3I Atlas. According to a recent paper by Avi Loeb, Adam Hibbard, and Adam Crowell, if a force of 2,675 kilometers were applied, Juno could be deflected to intercept 3I Atlas at the exact moment of its encounter with Jupiter on September 14, 2025. The simulations were conducted using the Optimum Interplanetary Trajectory software, which optimizes space trajectories to consume as little fuel as possible. This maneuver is called the Oberth maneuver and involves using Jupiter's gravitational pull to efficiently accelerate the spacecraft. However, it all depends on the remaining fuel reserves on Juno, which would initially have allowed for just such a maneuver. If this mission is possible, Juno could become the first spacecraft to get this close to an interstellar object and analyze it directly. Its instruments can detect its composition, magnetism, radiation, and possible dust or gas emissions, providing data that is impossible to obtain with telescopes on Earth alone. Of course, the trajectory could require small adjustments if 3I Atlas starts to behave like a comet and release gases or particles that alter its motion. In the coming years, the Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile will detect new interstellar objects almost monthly. And perhaps in the future, other probes, already in space, could be diverted to study them. If the Juno mission is extended, it could become a pioneer in this type of exploration. The media storm triggered by 3I Atlas. One hectic day, while he was on a live TV interview about the mysterious interstellar object 3I Atlas, Professor Avi Loeb ignored 2 simultaneous phone calls on his smartwatch. He later learned that one of the calls came from the office of Representative Anna Paulina Luna and the other from the news agency Reuters. Both were seeking more information about the research related to 3I Atlas. Immediately after the interview ended, Avi Loeb responded, explaining to the Luna representative the opportunity to investigate this interstellar object more closely with the help of the Juno spacecraft, orbiting Jupiter, a proposal detailed in a recent paper co-authored with Adam Hibbard and Adam Crowell of the Interstellar Studies Initiative. With a dose of imagination, Loeb confessed that if he had only a few months to live, he would choose to spend them aboard the Juno spacecraft, heading straight for a collision with 3I Atlas. The sight of such an object, traveling through interstellar space for billions of years, would be truly magnificent. Just hours after this discussion, Joe Rogan's segment analyzing Loeb's work on 3I Atlas was posted on YouTube and garnered over 1 million views in less than 12 hours. A wave of interview requests followed from Fox News, CBS, CNN, News Nation, and other international networks. For Avi Loeb, communicating research to the public is essential, but he believes that time is better spent actually doing the scientific work. In the last month alone, He has published 9 new papers. He emphasizes that the nature of 3I Atlas will not be revealed through media opinions, but through rigorous analysis of data obtained with modern telescopes, from radio waves to X-rays. While the observed anomalies are intriguing, more data is needed to determine whether 3I Atlas or other interstellar objects are technological in origin. If we ever discover an artifact that leaves no room for doubt, it will be essential to understand its functionality and intentions. Artificial intelligence could play a key role in analyzing this data, and reverse engineering alien technology could open up entirely new avenues for human civilization. At the same time, Loeb draws attention to the need to monitor the sky with the best technologies, from high-performance cameras to AI algorithms, both for objects in the Earth's atmosphere and those at a distance. The Galileo project, which he coordinates, aims to do just that. Going forward, the Vera C. Rubin Observatory is expected to discover a new interstellar object every few months. Avi Loeb argues that significant resources must be allocated and the best minds in the world must be attracted to address these challenges. He emphasized this in a briefing held in the U.S. Congress on May 1, 2025. He even proposes establishing an interstellar risk scale, where 0 would mean a natural object like a comet, and 10 an alien spacecraft with unknown intentions. The U.S. government is accustomed to issuing tsunami alerts for extreme natural phenomena, but Loeb believes that an encounter with a level 10 alien artifact would represent a truly cosmic tsunami, a change so radical that money and markets would become irrelevant. 3I Atlas under the observer's lens, keeping an eye on the ball. The interstellar object 3I Atlas continues to appear in telescopes as a compact ball of light. It is slightly larger than the background stars, but much closer. In such a context, Avi Loeb believes it is essential to stay focused on the object itself, not on social media likes or unscientific opinions. As 3I Atlas approaches the Sun, it will absorb solar radiation. If it is a comet, it could start to release gas and dust, forming a tail. But the hypothesis that it is just a water-ice comet is still premature. Some infrared spectra have been superficially interpreted as indicating the presence of water, but careful analysis shows inconsistencies. Where the water model predicts a decrease, the spectrum shows an increase, and vice versa. In fact, the data also match very well with the spectrum of an L-type asteroid, which does not have a tail. Avi Loeb points out that the loudest voices against alternative theories have not published a single scientific paper in the last decade. What are they afraid of? Real research requires doubt, rigor, and above all, openness. Loeb has recently written several scientific papers about 3I Atlas. Real science is not done with the megaphone of social media, but with serious data and analysis. In fact, it's the uncertainty that makes science interesting. It's exactly what inspires the general public, and the reactions were quick to appear. Avi Loeb received hundreds of messages from around the world. Here are 2 of the most touching. The first message came from an anonymous young man who wrote, among other things,
Dear Mr. Musk and Dr. Loeb, the lack of a rapid response risks repeating the Oumuamua regret of 2017. Even if 3I Atlas proves to be natural, launching a fast probe would yield unique data. If it is artificial, early detection can give months to prepare. I implore you to act now. I have no platform, only vision and hope that you will take action by November 2025.
The second message came from Iran.
Dear Professor Loeb, I admire your courage and openness in exploring unconventional ideas. I find myself in your vision of extraterrestrial life. I am convinced that one day I will have the opportunity to meet you in person.
Such messages remind Professor Loeb of the great responsibility of communicating science. He continues to believe that the truth about 3I Atlas will not be revealed through heated debates, but through careful observations with state-of-the-art telescopes, from radio to X-rays. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna's letter to NASA, the requesting to intercept 3I Atlas. On July 31, 2025, an official letter was sent by Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna to NASA. The topic? A unique opportunity. Intercepting the interstellar object 3I Atlas, which is on a trajectory close to Jupiter. The letter, signed as a member of the U.S. Congress, makes a strong appeal to the American Space Agency to seriously analyze the possibility of the Juno probe approaching this mysterious object. According to the letter, 3I Atlas will reach a distance of approximately 53.6 million kilometers from Jupiter on March 16, 2026. This close approach is considered a rare opportunity to study an object that originates from outside our solar system. Congresswoman Luna supports in her letter a paper led by Professor Avi Loeb, which proposes using a precise orbital maneuver to deflect Juno from its current orbit so that it will approach 3I Atlas. Using the sophisticated instruments already on board the probe, spectrometers, optical cameras, plasma, and radiation detectors, NASA could obtain unique data about the nature of this interstellar object. A key aspect of the letter is the question of the fuel remaining in Juno's engine. Although the mission has been active since 2011 and was scheduled to be deactivated in September 2025, Loeb and his team have shown that a speed boost of just 2.675 kilometers per second would be enough to allow a flyby of Comet 3I Atlas in March 2026. Anna Paulina Luna is therefore asking that NASA conduct an urgent study to verify the remaining fuel reserves on Juno and explore the possibility of extending the mission. The estimated cost would be approximately $15 million every 6 months, but, as the Congresswoman points out, the scientific benefits would be immeasurable. Even if the engine cannot be reactivated, Juno could continue to observe the object from a distance, providing unprecedented data. The letter concludes with a firm appeal. This opportunity should not be missed. Stephen Hawking's grim warning returns to the spotlight. Amidst the growing debate about the nature of the interstellar object 3I Atlas, a warning issued 2 decades ago by the late Professor Stephen Hawking has resurfaced in the public and scientific community. This warning concerns the danger of possible contact with an extraterrestrial civilization far more advanced than our own. Hawking argued that initiating such contact, actively and deliberately, could have catastrophic consequences. He drew a parallel between possible encounters between humans and aliens and historical episodes in which advanced human civilizations destroyed less developed ones. History, he said, has not been kind to the discovered. Aliens would most likely be much more advanced than we are, Hawking said in 2004. The history of encounters between advanced civilizations and primitive peoples on Earth is not a happy one. And they were all of the same species. I think we should keep a low profile. Hawking's ideas are now being taken up and expanded upon by researchers studying the so-called intelligence trap, a concept that describes the tendency of intelligent entities to overestimate themselves, ignoring major risks. According to this view, a simple gesture of curiosity, such as sending the location of Earth into space, could attract the attention of a hostile alien civilization. The context that has reignited this fear is related to the hypothesis of Harvard professor Avi Loeb, according to which 3I Atlas could have an artificial origin. Although the astronomical community largely believes that the object is a massive comet, its unusual trajectory raises questions. It includes close passes by Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, behavior that could suggest intentional control. In a recent study, Loeb stated that if 3I Atlas were to turn out to be an alien spacecraft, the consequences could be serious for humanity and would require defensive measures, although their effectiveness is uncertain. 3I Atlas's closest approach to Earth is estimated for December 17, 2025, at a distance of about 360 million kilometers, with a speed of over 240,000 kilometers per hour. Another study, published in 2024 by researchers from the US and Iran, reiterates Hawking's warning: direct contact could lead to the colonization of Earth. Even scientific elites, the authors warn, can fall into this trap of overconfidence, misinterpreting extraterrestrial signals. Stephen Hawking was one of the few scientists to clearly express his opposition to actively transmitting messages into space. In his final years, he emphasized several times that if we ever receive a signal, we must be very careful before responding. His message remains valid. In a universe where we don't know who might be listening to us, sometimes silence is the wisest choice. If this topic has raised any questions for you, leave a comment. I want to know what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next episodes. On this channel, we explore the most controversial mysteries of science and reality, and the journey is just beginning. Decoding the unknown, where the unknown makes sense.